evening. Thank you for the applause. Welcome once again to the 2019 Wilderness Issues Lecture Series. My name is Joanna Campbell, and I'm the Director of Education Programs for the Wilderness Institute, which is part of the Franke College of Forestry and Conservation here at the University of Montana. This year's theme, for those of you who are visiting for the first time, is titled Wild Hope: Fearless Risk Takers, Art Makers, and Storytellers on the Wilderness and Conservation Frontline. We are exploring the myriad ways people of different wilderness and conservation backgrounds navigate challenging and difficult times. So, a few quick housekeeping notes. For those of you who are taking the course for credit, your papers are ready from Connie's lecture, and you can pick those up at the end of the discussion period at the end of the lecture tonight. And I will also then collect your papers from last week's lecture. You can turn them in to me or to Patrick Kelly. Also, once again, thank you to MCAT for being here recording the lecture. Next week, I invite all of you to attend the fourth installment of the series with Julie Kajun, who is a professor at Salish Kootenai College. Her talk is called We Are Obligate Mutualists, The Stories of Soulmates, and she will be discussing the essential nature of reciprocity in life through the lens of stories about relationships, particularly through the land. Tonight, we have an art maker and so much more. Marianne Bongiorni is a professor of art in the newly merged School of Art and Media Art School, now known as the School of Visual and Media Arts. Marianne is the division head for the drawing program, which is introductory through graduate. She also teaches painting, sculpture, and performance art. Her art is in private and museum collections, and while she continues to exhibit studio works, much of her research is anonymous and can be found tangential to secondary highways throughout the West. I love that. She serves on a variety of graduate thesis committees across campus and has been a faculty member for the Wilderness and Civilization program since the mid-1990s. When not teaching or in the studio, she is often on horseback with a pack of stock dogs. Please join me in welcoming Marianne Bongiorni.
Thank you. And 2, 1, 2.
You got it.
Okay, can you hear me? No.
Double check there. Nope.
There we go.
There we go.
Okay, can you hear me now? All right. MCAT, are you good up there? All right. I'm loaded. I am not blowing anybody up, so don't shoot me, okay? I want to thank Joanna for inviting me to be a part of this. It's nice to be able to lecture outside of your common area, mine being art, visual art. That said, welcome artists. There's several of you in here. I'm glad you attended. And I hope I don't bore you, because you know, as in every introductory class I teach, I will be drawing the funnel. And should any of you want to draw the funnel, I have $1 in my back pocket. All right, I will pay you to draw the funnel. All right. When that's a fancy title for this lecture series, and I thought I better look up exactly what conservation means, because I assume that I am, and then I never know what it means. And then it talked about being prudent and prudent management. And I thought, okay, I know about prudent in regards to driving in Montana. What was it called? Prudent and reasonable and prudent. I know about that one, but so I did a little looking up, and I'm in there. I'm in, okay? Because I thought, oh, well, let's see. I don't want to be something I'm not. And so I just want to say that being able to do this, I am a supporter of the University of Montana's liberal arts mission, and I am a believer that art, like good scotch, goes with everything. All right. We're living during a time when art and science are once again looking to reunite. Understandably, our research has been isolated in order to discover specifics, However, in the current era, it is not uncommon for researchers to understand their findings in relation to the findings of other areas of expertise. It has been this relational contextual filter that has enabled cross-pollination of ideas. It could be, and I really believe this, that we're on the verge of a really wonderful pluralistic era. And we haven't seen one of those in a while. So I'm thinking that I hope I'm around to experience that. The entomologist E.O. Wilson, who wrote the book Half Earth, has mentioned how art is needed to translate the findings of science. I agree, and my own twist is to say the sciences, of course. This evening I'll be sharing how I've been nurturing a slow yet consistent intersection between my art practice and my experiences as a hired range rider for livestock grazing on public lands in rural areas of the American West, primarily in northern Nevada and the Toyabe Range, and also the Lemhi Beaverhead National Forest outside of Salmon, so down towards Ledor. I have range down there. Compared to Connie Meyer's speech and Martin Nye's respective presentations, this talk will be less linear and more informal. I will undoubtedly deliver a circle of ideas. And there'll be a lot of maybe more Q&A as we get into some of the images and we talk about some of the art. I did want to go over very quickly what I call the takeaway from the first two lectures. And Connie, I see you out there and you'll say, oh, she missed the point. But this is my takeaway from your lecture for those people that are attending all of them. Ask the question of what you're advocating. What is your advocacy based on? No matter the personal or political risk, recognize the opportunity to make an impact. Don't worry about your ideas being stolen. Remain positive and develop resiliency in light of failed negotiations or unpopular answers. Hold hands with strangers. Call out the BS, but remain civil. How am I doing? So far, so good. Find your connection network, all right, and it will find you. Honor one's work. And so, Connie, what I call it is the world's work. That is not my term, it's my mentor's term. And so let's go to Martin's lecture takeaway, okay? This is the takeaway from last week that I got. Develop an awareness of operating legislation in regards to our public lands, in particular the recent support for states to control federal lands and the risk of privatization. Be aware of the American Lands Council, what is being advocated and why. Be aware of dark fiction regarding oversight of public lands. Be aware of language. For instance, Zinkins mentioned to, quote, better align use of lands with the states. What's being implied there? Be aware of adaptive plans. Be aware of the implementation of governance. To understand the difference between various designations of public lands, for instance, state trust lands and not being multiple use. Be aware of place-based legislation. Regain the center and aim for enduring solutions. That's what I wrote down. For those of you that have to write papers, I just did it, okay? My wild hope is that I can contribute in some small way to forging a path for conservation and renewable resource to coexist. Yes, that is a wild notion, and it will surely take hope, will it not? Okay, so I'm going to divide this up into sections, and I better rock and roll here. The first section will be sharing a framework for art. I'll try to speed that up a little bit. The second section will be a couple of video clips of my artwork. And the third section will be looking at my studio practice of static work and what I do and why I do it. And then the last section regarding the title of this, Fearless Risk Takers. If we get into it, it's my planned non-retirement for retirement when I retire being an art professor, and that is to develop range as a more important position within our public lands. All right. The range riders right now are primarily, they're hired by the stock growers, and a lot of them are, young people looking for a summer job, and older people that just want to be horseback, but they really don't understand the difference between upland, lowland, where to put the salt, hydrology, or anything else. And when you are a range rider, like Bobby, what was it, the camp? What'd you call it, the camp person that you'd go to the camp and you'd be there? The camp host. When you're a range rider, you become the EMT, the camp host. You become the eyes and ears for the sheep biologist, the hydrologist, the Bonneville Water Administration and every tributary coming through every year. You become the person that understands the forage, the wildlife, just everything on that range, all right? And I really feel that those positions should be beefed up a little bit and be cooperative between the agencies and the stock growers in order to succeed, all right, if we're going to eat beef. Now, if we're not going to eat beef, we can just take the whole thing away, all right? But it looks to me like it's going to stick around for a while. All right, so I will read a quick essay, and then we'll get going on it. I might just, I don't know if I'll do the funnel or not. Gosh darn art students. No, I'm going to do it. Okay, here we go. This is what you've all been waiting for. I want to explain why art is something you don't understand, okay? And I want to give you a context for the non-art people, and I think I'll do it on this board.
Do you need some more light?
No, I can do this in my sleep. And so can half these students, all right? This is simply a context for contemporary art, all right? And you have to remember that most of the purview of the University of Montana in regards to art is contemporary art. And contemporary simply means moving it forward. That is how we perceive it. We want to move the language of art forward. So one of the things that we do by nature of being here is say, what can art be? All right? And so I want to offer this to you. I'm not married to this idea, but it seems to work pretty well. All right. This is a distillery, all right? And this is the distillery of the studio practice. And it could be the distillery of your research as well. What do we share? We share art students. Anybody? Yeah, we share culture, right? Culture and society. That's one of the main ingredients, all right? Then you take the ingredient of your research. In this case, it's art. So when students come into an art class or they're interested in art, I said, you're the one that chose it. It could be brain surgery. It could be range. It could be, mediation. It could be anything, all right? So whatever your area of expertise. So this is, I'm going to put art, all right? Now, within that, it's the history, the critical analysis, everything that has been delivered to you in information regarding your area of research, whatever that is. All right, so just think what your area of research is and just think of it in its entirety. All right, here's the kicker. You. Those are the three main ingredients that go in. All right, and you bring to it your experience and you bring to it your story, your narrative, your viewpoint, and you bring to it something individualized that hopefully you can recognize. And you should be asking yourself, what is it that I'm bringing that the next person isn't bringing to the table? Maybe I have a hunch and I want to develop that. Please become aware of it. Please develop it. That is the thing that we want, all right? So you put this in here, right, all the ingredients, and as it works its way down to this, which is going to be really dense, right? This is the finished result right down here as it goes through here. What happens? Mistakes. Woo! And all that information comes right back in. It didn't work. The negotiation didn't work. The art piece didn't work. The paper was a failure. This and that. There's no such thing. All that is energy. All right? All it is energy. And you're going to have lots of mistakes. And then you learn from those mistakes. And you end up editing, right? And you edit, and you edit, and you edit, and you get it down to this. The moment you get this, what happens? It asks a question. Whoops, am I going to run out of here? Yeah. Okay, the moment you get this, it will probably ask a question, right? Because it's certainly not an answer. It should be a question. And then we're engaged again, and guess what? It starts all over. This is why your professors never retire. Maybe should. Okay, so here's what happens. Is this not our research pattern? This is what we do. And we're going to do it over and over and over and over. And every time we reload and do this, we're bringing in new information. Okay, so I guess the first thing I'm going to try to give to you is that the job of the contemporary artist is to expand the language. My job is to say what is art. Okay, now, here we go. I'm going to do one more. This one won't be as long, all right? Okay, I'm going to erase that. These are categories I found to be true within art. This is pretty broad-based, all right? All right. That is not a coffee table. All right. So here's the first category out here. This category is the one that extends. All right. So that's extending the language of your research. All right, because your research is always changing. All right. In art, the second category is the one I call commentary. That means that you're making something that's a comment on something else, but it's not extending the language. It's just a comment, all right? This category is called genre. Genre is landscape, portraiture, still life painting, all that stuff that people love, right? Well, for the artist, this is the first thing. It never goes away. Yeah, we do it and we don't know what else to do. Kind of practice it. But that isn't the end game. The end game is out here. So that's the context I want to offer you in terms of art. All right? So genre painting, I had someone say to me, and it just is always amazing to me when I sit on committees where we have this brilliant university committee or community, and people say, I like pencil sketching. I go, really? Oh, what do I do with that? That's like me saying to someone who's a hydrologist, I say, I drink water. Good stuff. There's hydrogen in it, I heard, or whatever. Now, that's not an insult, but that's to say, let's up the game, folks. So if I'm trying to up the game, you can't blame me because that's my job. I signed on. That's my job. All right. Now, these two circles. Down here is your story. Your story covers all of these. All right. How can I represent the story of my community or the story of my era if I haven't represented my own? That just doesn't make sense to me. So first represent your own, then move and realize your own is in context to a community, and that's in context to an era. Do you know who I learned that from? Bill Kittredge. I was in grad school in Santa Barbara. I walked in with my last $50 before I got booted out with my graduate degree, and I went to a bookstore and spent every last penny. And it's the first time I found the Western Writers, 1983, right? And I picked up this anthology and went, holy cow, I'm supposed to go to New York and LA. I think I'll go to Nevada. And I did. And I'm not sorry that I did, all right? I learned it from the writers. And the writers did it before the artists did it, okay? So Robert, you guys did it long before we did it. You claimed it. And the University of Montana claimed it. So when I got the opportunity to teach here, I applied for one job. I was either going to stay on the ranch or I was going to come to Missoula. Well, I've been here since 1991. It's because the writers that are here. Okay, so you have to tell your story first. And then you have to figure out sneaky ways of telling everybody else's story. Okay? Now, what's up here? Myth and religion. Myth and religion permeates all of this. All right? Personal values. All right? And here's how it works. How many Mary and baby Jesus images? A whole bunch. Are we going to get some tomorrow? Yep. Are we going to get some after that? Yep. How many Dianas and Zeuses and Athenas and all that? Oh, yeah, there's a bunch of them too. Okay? You know, so you need to understand, this never goes out of style. You want something to do, pick up a piece of dirt and make it a Venus of Willendorf. You can sell it at the farmer's market. All right? You'll have a swimming pool, I'll have an inner tube. Okay? Because I can't give my stuff away. Now, well, I can. Jimmy Heath took one. So this is a context by which maybe we can understand why art people do what they do. Okay? I'll just give that to you, and I'll get on with the program. All right? Yes, you're welcome. Have at it. And if it doesn't work, let me know. So far, it's worked pretty good. Where was I on this? So I think what I'll start with is, I'll start with just a couple pages I'll read to you, and then we'll see some images. Unlike pop culture, moving cows is usually steady and slow. Being in the right place at the right time. This allows for time to think. If nature dominates humankind, writing range might trump making art. That's before Trump was elected. Okay. As an artist, how can I engage with this real and constructed place? On the range, I'm in conversation with the language of the natural world, whereas in the studio, I'm in dialogue of visual linguistic thought processes. It could be that those of us who live here and make things ought to simply glue some macaroni on cardboard, get our art-making fix, and move on with the job of inhabiting, redefining, and sustaining the West. The sovereignty of the West is a distinct region is an established cultural theme. While primarily domestic, it is also a strand of the larger history of the United States, morphing into an international brand, depicting nature's grandeur and man's conquest of nature for the betterment of society. Historically, this usually translates as extraction-based economic gain. From manifest destiny to current federal, state, and local governance of the land and its natural resources, the West is an evolving petri dish, and we're living in it, folks. That petri dish is of best practices, serving an ever-increasing number of competing interests: mining, logging, recreation, military, agriculture, and the push and pull of urban versus rural. While my knowledge of the cogs of the West is less than those who operate day in and day out as ranchers, biologists, or historians, my working comprehension is evident in what I make. My studio practice invokes cultural history, art history, criticism, and theory in equal measures with portraits of the people who occupy the West, most of whom could very easily live without my efforts. I find their trajectories a lot more interesting than they find what I do compelling or even necessary. Gathering information is both formal and informal. A good portion of my childhood and adult life has been spent driving the West, connecting one place, one reality with another. Rainforest to arid desert, roadside attraction to historic monument, mother's house to father's house, cultivated to wild. Since I began teaching, driving has become a literal and figurative bridge between my non-academic life and my job as a university art professor. The driving is usually alone, often with a horse trailer. I listen mostly to how my truck is running, sometimes local AM radio, less often to music, and usually playing the same songs, if I do, over and over. Driving has become a non-linear activity compressing time. The same highways, the same mountain ranges year after year, only the truck stops seem to change. 12, 14, 16 hours of driving can cover a lot of miles, and the regional topography is inscribed in my mind's eye. The physical tracing and feel of particular stretches of road are part of my muscle memory, similar to waking up from a cat nap when pulling into the driveway. When I visualize the interior West, it unfolds as basin and range, altitude, spider webs of water drainages, population centers, and ribbons of pavement. This map has changed within my lifetime, but its overarching concerns have not. Consider water. Just as major dam construction and irrigation projects mark the 20th century, drought and reallotment of water will be the hallmarks of the 21st century. My work conjures such Western issues and associative icons and compositional relational riddles. Water, immigrant, migrant, highways, natives and whites. The icons and syntax are purposefully muddled so the viewer is forced to critically sort it out, latch on to whatever they feel is salient. I think of this compositional strategy as a mimesis of the Western experience. We can feel our feet on the ground, but we can't control the weather. The themes and physical elements in my work are concrete, but the pieces do not offer a conclusive Cartesian view. The initial, wow, what are those familiar objects and images, usually gives way to a pregnant pause of unknowing. Experiencing what I make is similar to solving an iconographic linguistic puzzle that is both literal and metaphoric. For instance, a one-of-a-kind mounted deer head or a John Wayne print can be interpreted both metaphorically or as concrete information. The viewer's understanding of the cultural, historical, and visual lexicons determines meaning because there is more than one punchline in my work. It depends on how the sequence of information is absorbed by the viewer. Historic iconologia, with their signifiers and layered syntax, are thrown into a shake-a-day cut from which I attempt to orchestrate plausible outcomes. Entry points through cliché, rhyme, ancient and contemporary myths, legends, and science are presented as equally true on a sliding scale directly lifted from my immediate environment. Reasoning that handcrafted thrift store paintings, manufactured figurines, anecdotal quotes, found objects, and materials such as a wooden shoe, roofing tin, a crashed airplane wing, or a dead coyote may ultimately have more validity as true representations of this place than anything I could hand draw, paint, or manufacture. I am fully aware much of what I do doesn't fit the gallery or academic rubric. Such entities typically feature three interrelated categories: artworks that are timeless and address identity, myth, or religion, artworks that report on socio-political realities, and rarely artworks that are visionary and expand our understanding of art. There it is. Okay. Most of my efforts fall in between these groupings. If a person wants to buy a piece, I sell. If I get offered a show, I accept. But building a resume and name recognition is of little interest because the art world demands the presence of the person as much as the art. And I cannot see how this would positively affect my daily life. I make art for what I learn, not recognition or financial gain. I'm going to tell you a little story right there, and I'll end this. Art involves a lot of fancy dinners. You put on a black dress, a little string of pearls, you shake a bunch of hands, they congratulate you, and you go to a dinner with a bunch of people that have a bunch of money. All right? Now, I got over that when I was about 30. All right? And so what do I do? I'm a university professor, and that's what the university wants. So I have to figure out how to do all this. All right? And that's why I have studio work and I have anonymous work. And I'll show you that. Like my practice, this catalog, or these images, right, are not linear. The page spreads move in between what I make, what I do as an artist, what I do when I'm not teaching, and what I see that's interesting. The boundaries are fuzzy and fluid. The output may be spotty, but the feel is consistent. My best efforts may be the highway site performances, highway poems, and site trailers. I'll show you these. They are pieces that succinctly hit the mark I have in mind. The site performances date back to 1980 in Eastern Washington. That's when I first started doing site works on the highway. Their staging runs parallel to producing drawings, paintings, and two-dimensional constructions. The highway poems are hand-painted with a brush and a mix of non-toxic tempera paint and wallpaper paste. The content of these road poems is derived from the people who drive that particular stretch of pavement. The words fit inside the width of the standard driving lane and are easy to read. The frequency of how the words fall on the pavement depends on the rise and fall of the topography in relation to the speed limit. So, in effect, there are some rules, the first of which is that I commit to being a part of the community until a poem solidifies. That takes years, by the way. The trailers exist both at specific external sites and in gallery settings. The trailers, when viewed in the gallery situation, rely heavily on recontextualization. So lately I've been citing them only outside and using two-dimensional constructions and drawings for gallery work. The constructions and drawings are diverse. The spatial structures of the constructions pivot off art history. materiality, and installation. The drawings are immediate, less edited, and include physical observations, socio-political reflections, schematics for three-dimensional works, time and event sequences, observations, grocery and hardware store lists, phone numbers, quotes, and revisionist history. In other words, the drawings just are. Given the vested interests and physical limitations of the West, how can we effectively occupy and sustain our presence in this place? How have we exploited it in the past? How do we presently interact with it? What might the future entail? What feeds our land ethic, our practices, or our vote? As an artist, what new stories and images address this complexity? Is a direct translation, such as a documentary, more real than abstract or poetic translations? These concerns form an umbrella for my art-based research in the heart of my studio practice. Okay, that's it, and I will show you some stuff. Let's do some videos, and I might need Joanna's help, but let's see if I can get this figured out. Okay, I want to show you some videos, and the first one I want to show you. Okay, let's start, since I talked about the poems. Okay, so here's how it goes. I go to a community, I'm a range rider, or I'm doing something there year after year after year. And you get to know people, and you get to know them on the merit of your ability to get on a horse and do what you have to do, not on the ability to make art. Oftentimes, that comes out later. I don't lead with that. It scares people. And so you're going to see a clip of me hanging my head out an airplane to give you the context of where these poems are. Now, I write these illegally with tempera paint, and you have to buy the paint in many communities. You can't just buy them in one or they'll find you. And then you mix it up with wallpaper paste, and you save all your shampoo bottles and all your Myers soap and all that stuff, and then you put a brush on it and duct tape, and then you go out and you paint. It drips down onto the brush, onto the pavement, and that's how I do it. And then these are non-toxic, and they go away. They are not spray painted, all right? And I just don't go out and randomly do them. I have to know who lives there. And they sort of just, they come to me. I don't go to them, okay? And so what you're going to see is a very loud clip of the airplane, and if you see a little bit of orange here and there, those are the words "on the highway." All right, and so here we go.
Just try it.
Let's show you. What about?
I think if you just open it, let's just see what happens.
Okay, we're going to see if this just goes over the top of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Okay. Yeah.
Right here.
Yep.
Yep.
Mhm.
And then okay. Yeah. Oh, it's not.
Pause.
Pause. Ooh, there we go.
Okay. So you just
Okay.
open it, drag it over, and then full screen.
Okay, and where's the go? Okay.
Right there.
Okay. The longest poem is 65 miles. So you can see the words on the highway here. Okay, and now I'll read what was written on there. Maybe I should read them first, huh? I've done these for a lot of years. Okay. Jackrabbits, wild horses couldn't drag any further. 6th year drought, wait, watch, bleached skies, sweat each drop, speaking double. Romanticized, criticized, mythized. In this place, leather, hides, better than rip stop nylon or pony print? I know, wrap your head on that one, right? Okay. I'll read two more to you. All right. Now remember, the wordsmithing can only fit in a lane because the letters are yay big. All right. So you have to, it's not that I am opposed to or multisyllabic words, but they don't fit. All right. Working dog's last breath, a great sorrow, or a parent anticipating theirs, knowing full well a bundle of moments can flip-flop without warning, knowing brilliance tied up short gets a little snotty, knowing rain is an alchemical dream come true. Here's one that people liked. It actually got reprinted in the local newspaper because it had a rhyme. Bunny hunger, jackrabbit splat, roadkill du jour makes coyote fat. Yip, 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 bewitching hour, dinner still warm to be devoured. It's long. Oh, hang on. Coyote silently slinks up the draw, licking lips, thorn and paw, pounce upon a long-tailed mouse, break the neck of a chucker grouse. Joseph's cloak pocket holds the key. I like America, America likes me. And artists, you will know that's an homage to Joseph Beuys, performance artist that I was influenced by. He did a piece many, many years ago in New York City where he spent a week in a loft space in New York with the New York Times, a cup of coffee, and a live coyote. And it was a piece based on the U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War. He's a German. He's now deceased. He's a German citizen. I'll do one more and then we'll move on. Sunday, last snow of another winter, crazy and unkept, blew in and out, one of those Hail Mary, come from everywhere at once, blinding ground blizzards, carried over the next rise. Okay, so I've been doing those for a long time. Let's go on to another clip, okay?
Can I ask you a question
Yeah.
about that?
Oh, yeah, ask questions, yeah.
How long does it take you to actually paint the highway? Like, is it days? Is it...
This is where you have locals help. All right, it goes like this. You go out usually between 3:30 and 4:30. The bar, what's that?
AM or PM?
Oh, in the middle, like AM. Okay. So the bar crowd has to be done and gone, and then the police are done and gone, right? The constable is finished, right? They take a break right about then, but it can't be when people are going to work. So I have about an hour, maybe an hour and a half in the kind of between 3 and 4:30, 5 o'clock to do these. Sometimes if I can commandeer my friends, I get them to help, and they take different sections, but I'm really specific about the topography and the cadence. So it's kind of hard when I don't. I need to do these where I have a topo map, I just realized, next to this, so I understand the cadence. I just sort of did it in spacing. And I'm going to tell you the first one I did. This is a great little, this is a story, because you said storytellers, right? Okay, and it goes like this. It was on Highway 50 in Nevada. Before it was coined the loneliest road in America, it has been my workshop for many, many years. And I did a piece. I don't know where it is. It's not in here. I did a whole bunch of pieces starting at all the brothels in Nevada, because I was commuting between Vegas and the ranch, and so the brothels at that point were the only places with telephones. before cell phones and all this. So anyway, I did a piece. It was I don't know, maybe 50, probably 46, 50 miles, and they came through the next week and rechipped the highway. And I was also bartending at the time in Fallon, Nevada. And there's a little bar in Fallon, Nevada called the Cock and Bull. And all the guys from the highway crew would come in, and they knew the poem because they would rechip sections at a time, and they'd all come in. And this particular bar was one of those bars when Bob walks in, you go, Bob, I know what he drinks too, right? And you put him up, and so as it came through the week, in this highway crew, they could say it together. And the first line, I thought I had brought that one, but the first line of it from the Salt Wells brothel in Churchill County was titties, nickels, beer bellies, debts crossing the junction between dysfunction and beauty. Right? And that was sort of the first phrase of that poem. And they knew it. And they would say, no, it doesn't go like that. It goes like this, And, no, I'm setting them up. Drinks, it's happy hour, and it's a bar in Nevada, and it's 100 degrees out, and I'm just setting the bar, and I'm like, okay, this is good. I'm hitting the mark now, That's a story, right? Okay. There's a lot of those. All right. So now I just slide this over. Is that what I do? Here, you might have to do this for me. Okay. Oh, I see.
Do you want to play another video?
Yeah, let's do this one.
Honk and Teardrop?
Yeah. Okay, so my lovely assistant Joanna's helping me, right? Yeah. Okay, so Honk and Teardrop, we'll play that one. We slide it. Yeah.
Open it now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. These are two consecutive trailer pieces. One is in a gallery and one is outside. The one outside has disintegrated, though. Yeah. This is a handmade stock trailer that was built with metal fence posts and tin and riveted together. It was 22 feet long, and the floor was 4x4 cedar 4x4s. And I excised it out of the land. I had to jack it up, clean it out, jack it up, move it onto a flatbed, drive it to Billings, cut it in half. I hired the gymnastics team to carry it upstairs to the gallery. I then riveted it back together, stuffed it with straw. Look at this, it's all handmade, right? And there's 3 motors that go up through the middle of it. Oh, okay. And in the middle is a rotor with lights and horses that came off the streets of New York. My friend sent me somebody's play horses, Jay, right? And then these tarred and feathered wonder horses that come up through the middle of this. And I don't know if you know this, but it's customary to take old structures and use them for hay storage or straw storage. And so that's part of what I'm alluding to in this piece. And then, of course, Hank Snow, right, our dear Canadian, was playing over the loudspeaker over the top of the piece. And not on this track, but most of the track was him talking about his terrible life. Dad left and Mom's husband beat me and this and that, and he's recording it with this guitar. And I thought, whoa, that's pretty telling. And so what I'm amazed at is the sort of ingenuity of making what you have work. And it's also, though, all my work has a little bit of nostalgia and just to hook you in. And then what I'm really talking about is the relationship between tragedy and humor. I feel that tragedy and humor is the prevailing narrative of the American West, right? The Conestoga wagon is going, throw Grandma and the organ out, we're going, all right? And so I try to work with that perceived narrative in relation to specific ideas for each piece, but that's sort of the umbrella narrative. And then we're going to move on to the next piece. This is a teardrop trailer. It's based on boom and bust. It's mounted on a commercial windmill bearing. and you drive by it and see this thing spinning in the wind right above the greasewood and sagebrush, it does spin both ways, right? It is now disintegrated, but the entire trailer the frame of it was wood. It was bent wood. So it was one of the first teardrops. Now, the boom and bust laws. The boom and bust laws came in because of the economy, the boom and bust economy. So, for instance, you get married in Vegas, you get divorced in Reno. That's the tradition. You throw your wedding rings in the Truckee River. And so boom and bust is not just the economy in relation to the land, it's also in relation to how people conduct their lives. And I see that sort of spider webbing. Okay? So that's that. And then, okay, Joanna, now I'll get out of this. Is it down here? I don't see the little app.
Right here.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so now I'll go to the catalog, and then we'll come back. We'll end with that one.
Okay.
Or actually, let's just do it now as long as we're watching
Okay.
TV, right?
All right.
All right. Okay, so at some point, you'll hear the bell. This is me coming home after a day of work out of Rocky Canyon. And I just kind of held my phone up, and this is pretty typical. When I ride with people, we ride with bells so we can hear one another across the canyons. And if someone's riding and then they stop, you know they have cows. And you better go help them. You know, in this situation, work's done when we're all done. It's not done when I'm done. And so my bell has a certain pitch. My partner's bell has a different pitch. And we can hear one another, and that's 33,000 acres, but you can hear, you'd be amazed what you can hear in those spaces, right? So Joanna said the other night, she said, oh, is this your commute? I said, so I relabeled this my commute. So this life and what one does when they're not in the studio, all right? And this is, I'm looking forward. I've been off this range, and it looks like I'm going to go back on it this summer. So I'm looking forward to being back on. This is Rocky Canyon outside of Leadore. Yeah. All the range riders, anybody that's ridden this range is listed in a lawsuit with Western Watershed Project. So I'm listed as as being liable for a bunch of stuff through Western Watershed Project legal. And it opens up out onto the BLM here. Okay. So, I kind of do that, and I go, this line is getting pretty fuzzy between studio and this other thing, right? Okay. I'm going to talk about my pieces. We'll do a quick Q&A, and we're done. All right. So I will. Hey, Joanna, how do I scroll down? Where's the scrolly thing on this?
I think you just.
Do I just do it this way?
I think. No, wait. Oh yeah.
Keep going. Yeah.
So you use this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this. Okay. I'm just going to go down. Okay. So that's what this looks like when it's. When you're painting it. Okay, so, Jimmy, there's that piece. Yeah. Okay, I'll start with this. I want to, on the right, I have a photo notebook. Instead of taking sketches, I take a lot of photographs. And then this is one of my pieces on the left. And what I wanted to point out here is that this, okay, so this and this is a thrift store painting. I split it in half, and I moved it onto the corners. This is my painting of that painting. Okay, so this is linoleum. This is my painting of the linoleum. All right, so I do I call them 2D constructions. I was trained primarily as a painter, and then, of course, I'll pull these icons together, the hands, of course, being wings. That's about, I don't know, like 7 by 10 feet. Okay, these are highway performances back in the 80s. This is not uncommon for me to sit down and just take an idea and blast it out. in terms of drawing. This is a good one. Okay, so yellow roses mean what? Friendship, right? This is an oil painting, somebody else's painting. Well, I don't know if you can hardly see it. This little blurb here is Columbus's ship getting ready to go careening across this, beautiful little creek, all right? And of course, the life preserver vests up here, but done kind of in a burnt charcoal. I used ash for some of the coloration on this, with the meaning, of course, and this, the white cloud here, the meaning, of course, being, gee, Columbus, what are we doing? All right. Speaking of which, that's too hard to talk about. Let's go to this one. Here's Columbus's ship again. These are themes. We know that all native men wear full regalia 24/7. All right, and there's the proof right there. Okay, so here's the native, the person of the native symbol here underneath this sort of headboard with the ship. The oar is out of the water. It's anchored by a rock. Over here is the Indian princess. Over here is the Indian brave, because, of course, if you have one, you have to have the other. And then these are thrift store paintings, and then this is my painting off of those paintings. Okay, so I only use paint to, most of the time, not to manufacture an image. I use paint to meld the information together. This is about 5 by, 7 feet, maybe 8 feet. Okay, we'll skip over that. I'll do one more, take some Q&A. This is another trailer piece. Get through this. I have a whole series of things I do where I just call it lines, the distance from point A to point B. This is a train, this is feeding sheep. Immigrant, migrant. Who's the immigrant? Who's the migrant? Who lives here? Who doesn't? Right? They're always facing one direction or the other. In this way, it's more or less indicating just keep right on going. Just keep right on going. It's the Europeans coming to this country, right? That is not about ice skating. Let's see. In this one, this is deceiving. This is actually a small piece. This is a fairly large piece. This is 10 feet across. Conquistadores, all right, on this piece. And on this one, the astronaut, the Virgin Mary with baby Jesus, and a silver blob of unknown. Las Vegas, one of my hometowns. And a lot of times, heaven and hell, corrals, water troughs. The one thing I want to end with, there is one thing I want to, more performance pieces. Coyote has to have 5 strands. Good and evil. Water. If I can find it in here. People shooting at each other. The last calf. This is the stuff that just, like, you drive and you go, where's the fence? And then there's 2 painted garbage cans. This is how this is how I work. I work with stuff. That's my collection. Yeah,
About that
yeah.
image that you just passed by?
Sure. Which one?
So that right there. So is the image on the left, is that a photograph that you took?
This is me working outside, generating ideas. So this will be preemptive to working on stuff, and then I move it over into these pieces. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I talked about story, and I'll hurry up here, folks. This is something I drew many, many years ago, obviously. Bobby's shaking her head. This is a ranch I worked on, subsequently as an adult. And I got to thinking about this. This is from the air. And I got to thinking about it, and I went, holy cow, I have a drawing about this ranch. And, of course, I didn't grow up this way. This is just what I wanted in this case. But there is something I want to show you guys. So thrift store painting, cataclysmic. Well, there's a lot going on in that one, folks. Yeah, I won't. I want to explain something. Oh, I missed it in here somewhere. Well, I don't know if we're going to get to it. And it has to do with well, it might not be in this collection. No, it's not going to be there. Okay. Anyway, this gives you an idea of what I do. So where do I take it from here? This is what I've been working on. What I've been working on is to move more and more towards the anonymous work. I'll probably keep my studio practice going because it's just so much damn fun, you know. But it is a lot of ego wrapped into a piece of static work, and I understand that. I'll probably continue to do that. What I really want to do, especially I get kind of excited when I listen to other speakers in this series, is really promote this range thing, you know. And Jay Winfield was the former head of the Salmon Forest. He's back in Washington, D.C. now with fire. And we've talked about possibly connecting agencies to train people where they would represent both the agencies and they would represent the livestock growers in how to do this successfully. We've had success. I've never had a ticket, even in drought. And there is a way to do it. You know, unless you get rid of beef. You know, if beef's going to be here and we're going to have range, can we do it successfully? And so even though I have this practice, I also have this other interest. And I really feel that's where it's probably going to go, at least for a while I'm still in the saddle, and try to build that and train people to how to do this. And by the way, when you run cows in Nevada, you really learn how to do it because there isn't a lot of grass, and you got to know what you're doing down there. And so, well, any questions? You now have 1 minute and 45 seconds.
Oh, you go till 8:30.
Oh, it does?
Yes.
Oh, I was kind of racing through. I thought we went till 8. Oh, God. Well, I can keep going. Believe me, anything about the art, because I can keep going on that for a long time. Each piece, okay, I will say this. There's the umbrella theme of the tragedy and humor, right? And then each piece takes on a little bit different specific intention, all right? Like okay, I'm after this and this one and this and that one, and we'll do it that way. I didn't know that. Do we have questions? And why don't we go till 1/4 then? I thought it went to 8. Any questions so far? This is a good Q&A time.
So I have a question.
Sure.
So when you talk about, I guess, I've heard you talk about one of your interests as an artist is it following an ounce of beef?
Yes. Okay. So I don't know where the art's going to intersect with this stuff. All right. But I do have this idea. I think that we, if you look at how people consume protein worldwide, we really eat a lot of protein in the United States. We eat a lot of beef. And I think one of the way range is going to survive in the cattle industry will survive is to not have so much beef. And I'd like to follow an ounce of that to the table and just see what does it actually take to get it to the consumer, all right? Now, everybody says, I want grass-fed and I want this and that. Well, that's great in theory, folks, but we're talking masses of people that consume, all right? That's why you have feedlots in the Midwest, all right? By the way, the rancher would like to see grass finished too. That's what that is when they're on range. Where it goes south is the USDA. Don't get me started on the USDA, all right? The USDA systematically in the 70s went through all the local processing plants, all right, and shut them down. They shut them down. They shut them down to protect you, all right? And so places like Lolo Locker, or a lot of communities had their own processing, which means that the beef could be grass finished more or less, right? If that's what you wanted, you would go to the local processor. And that was pretty common. Now we have huge feedlots, all right? Now, finishing beef. That's just going to be a consumer choice, all right, that'll drive that one way or the other. It is finished until it gets sold, and the reason it gets sold to Superior or Western Livestock or whoever the broker is because then it goes to the feedlot to be fattened, and then it goes to the kill plant. So that's the story of beef. It will go to the kill plant eventually. And so the consumer is in total control of how that works. If the consumer says, I don't want this, then what do you want? Do you see what I mean? The rancher's just trying to get their cattle to do what the consumer wants. And if you really think about it, it's in the feedlot. You guys, ranchers, all this stuff about hormones and this and that, it's not that common. They can't afford it. They're too cheap. Ranchers are cheap, folks, all right? And I know, because I know what you make when you do it. And so what happens is they're not going to give them hormone. All the junk that nobody wants is in the feedlot. You put that many cattle in those close quarters, standing in their own shit, you know what? They're going to get sick, okay? And there's a lot of drugs involved. I mean, I've ridden feedlots, and here's what you do. You ride pin after pin after pin, and you bring out all the sick cattle, and they go into the sick bay, and then somebody comes along and gives them, some LA-200 or whatever, and then pretty soon, after 45 days or 60 days, that goes to the consumer. So the consumer's sort of in control of all this, so there's that part of it, and I really want to follow that ounce or that section of protein to the table, and just see what does it take to do that. Okay, and what is the taxation on our lands to do that, all right? Because the alternative is you're going to import it, or are you going to put it in a feedlot? Okay, so if you really think about it, it makes more sense to run the cows with the wildlife. By the way, elk have brucellosis. We run cows with elk all the time. Okay, so what's that conversation about? Now, there's a lot of quixotic things going on here, and I don't quite understand them all. But you can do this successfully, is what I have found out. Where did I learn it? I learned it from old guys in arid country. You take the old guys in arid country, where you take away all the politics and all this stuff, a lot of them know how to do this. And I have learned about, intense grazing on arid land. Does it work? Does it not work? Poisonous plants, where to put the salt grounds, all that kind of stuff. And so I guess what I would say is that those of you that are pursuing degrees, especially in the conservation into things, try to understand the industry is what I would say to anybody. A lot of times I have found that people that work for the agencies, if you work for the agency like the Forest Service or the BLM, these are multiple use lands, a lot of times you are given several things to oversee. So I may only see our range con, a week after we get off of a range, they come to take their testing for forage, and I might not only see them, 4 times in the summer. And I know the land, but they don't know the land. They're just up there they're hurried, they run up in a pickup truck, they take some tests, and they're gone, all right, because they have to go to the next place. So, this is where the range people could probably step up their practice. Here's another thing. All the biologists, all right, the sheep biologists, the fish biologists, all the different biologists that come onto range to collect data and do their studies in the summertime, you should be talking to the people on the range. The sheep biologist in my last range, he actually lives in Florida. He comes up. He's been studying the same sheep for 20 years down there on the Beaverhead, and he would come in and talk to us first, And it's like, yeah, here's where we've seen them. This is what we've noticed. I have copious notes on all this stuff, all right? And so it would make more sense, it'd be more efficient. One of the reasons that the locals sometimes get their ire up, right, is because you have to remember, they see things a lot of times financially, and they see financial waste. I've had 8 people show up for in-stream this and that, and I come kind of long trotting along the corner, and it's like, whoa, Flicka, who are you guys? And it's we've got the regional, the national, and the local level for in-stream biology. We haven't had water in it for 2 years. Did you ever think to ask me? And they all flew in. They got in their vehicles. They drove up there, and it's like, hey, we're here for, I'm always like, how are you? Hello, what's your name? I'm so-and-so. Can I help you? And, yeah, we're here. And I said, wait, there hasn't been water there in 2 years. So how much money is that? Do you see what I mean? And so that inefficiency, I personally feel we need to keep it at the governance at the national level on these lands. But I also feel at the regional level, which is calling the shots to the local level, right, that there's a lot of cleaning up we can do. Why are you sending 2 people in a side-by-side to check every trough when I go by it at least once a week? I know where every trough is on my range. I do a report. The reports have pictures. They have maps. Did you look at the report, right? That's a lot of money. It adds up. Why are you spraying weeds in August for knapweed? That's money again. Okay, so when the locals get their ire up, it's sometimes because of inefficiencies that translate to tax dollars in their heads. I know, I listen to it. Okay, and so I really look forward to being at the table, and when we set up grazing plans and we set up where the cows are going to go and how many and the AUMs and all that stuff, I really look forward to the person saying, now, did you plan on allocating for weed spray? When can we expect that? Hint, hint. Oh, no, we didn't. Gee, maybe we should. Okay, great. So I've learned that in the agencies, you have to ask a year ahead of time. So all my reports have what I call heavy and light use needs, and where I'm going to need EIS for water development. Streams change organically because of the way winter comes down and the way the thaw happens. So if there's been a shift in any kind of water development and I'm going to need an EIS, well, it takes a long time to get an EIS. And you can expedite these in some cases, but that's up to the range riders. And an 18-year-old range rider that's looking for a summer job is not going to ask for that. And the range con, whoever's going out and looking over the conservation of that area, may or may not ask it or may not get it right because they don't know. They have too much to oversee. And so I've learned a lot of lessons on the relationship between place, management, going to the meetings, how to request, all those types of things. And I just encourage all of you that are getting these degrees to try to understand what's involved in these things. All right? Yeah.
I guess just a follow-up to that, just to make sure folks are making the connection in the room between the work that you do, as a range rider and your art, right? How do you see those worlds connected? I mean,
okay, here we go.
But yeah, how do you see those?
And then we'll let everybody out because I'll answer some questions. I'll let you out. Okay, so here's how it works. I have always been an artist first. I will probably always be an artist. I think like an artist, all right? But one of the things that artists love is design. Artists like design. They like to open up the junk drawer and tip it out and put the pencils this way and the erasers this way and the rubber bands this way and all that stuff. It goes back to design. Is not range design. You see, I see it as one big design thing. All right, and if we think about entropy and chaos and these different kind of theories operating, that this interconnectedness is there, it becomes art. I'm just about that close to calling range art. I'm not quite there yet, but I'm sure getting close. I haven't quite figured out how to do that.
Why is it separated?
Well, in my mind it's separated because of it's not, range is more concrete and art is more abstract for me. okay? There's a poetic factor or it's something you don't understand as much. And range tends to be pretty concrete because you're trying to do things properly. Does that answer that? Yeah. I just haven't figured out how to get them, to overlay completely. I'm not saying it's impossible. It just hasn't occurred to me. All right. And I don't want to just call it that vicariously without really understanding what it is. So, ask me in 5 years. Yeah.
I wonder if
Yeah.
art becomes as you develop your relationships, bring a crafted relationship to it versus maybe they go out there and
Yeah.
family begin with.
Well, I think, the element of design and craft apply, absolutely, but not the element of poetic poignancy. That's not there, that surprise element, right? And so I'm not quite there yet, all right? But I just feel that it can, there's something to be said for it. But here's the other thing that we have to think about. Art has kind of, in a lot of ways, I think it's sort of played itself out in a lot of ways. And art in the environment is starting to lift up closer and closer to the top of the pond scum, right? And so what's happening is that we've played out pictorial structures, for instance, pictorial structures, all right? That's how the thing is composed. We've played it out. We've had flatness, we've had depth, we've had shadow, we've had this, we've had that. We're kind of played out there, all right? So we have so we kind of have that second commentary thing, which is I'm sort of in between, those two on the left, and where I land. But I think that what has been happening since since the last pluralistic era of the 60s, when we had a lot of movements going on socially and politically and in art and in other areas, as we played that out and we just sort of went back into those, I think we're going to see artists moving towards the environment more, looking for those intersections instead of being in the studio all the time. So does that kind of do it? Yeah, okay. Any other questions?
Yeah. And I realize this is maybe a little outside of your comfort zone for some of the folks in the room, so please know there are no stupid questions.
Yeah, that's right. You can just say, like, what is that thing? Marian, hi.
When you put your poetry on the road, do you have the direction in mind, and also, have you ever thought about what you're seeing going the other direction?
Well, wait, you can't read it going the other way. You just see these little blurbs. Yeah, pretty much you just see these little blurbs. I'm kind of looking for an image I wanted to show you guys. So do I know? Absolutely. Yeah, in fact, some of the rules, my personal rules are, that thing where you fall asleep and then you wake up when you're just like a quarter mile to the driveway? If I can't do that, I cannot make a poem there. My body has to know the place. And vehicles, like when you're a kid growing up, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, when you're out here and someone says you want to, that thing where you want to come for dinner and it's 12 hours away, I mean, sure, where are you going? Well, we're going to go to Nevada for dinner. And I think that roads they're kind of overlooked. And I have always felt that the highway has kind of been my audience in my place. And so part of these are 6 foot square, by the way, and so I have to know it, and I have to know who I'm talking to, like who's going to be on this road, all right? The one about the dog, a friend's dog got kicked, dead, and by the way, there's a lot more death in this whole thing. Like there's a lot of things that die, and you don't want that information. It just kind of comes with the territory. But and so that poem was about their dog, right? And their parents were elderly, and whatever. So these are sort of gifts, and that's why I don't sign them. Like I'll do this, or I'll kind of tell people, yeah, I kind of do this thing, but I don't go out there and like this and say, hey, I'm the highway poem writer. How do you do? Like I don't do that. So does that kind of answer it? Yeah.
Physically, do you have a tendency to do your homeward commute, or or it's a piece does the tone of it sometimes have to do with the direction and the destination in mind?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So destination people, topography, speed. You know, when you're towing, you're going to go up a grade. Like Nevada's basin and range, and every hour you're going to hit a grade. And so the cadence of the wordsmithing, all that has to do with place. Physical place, social political place, stories, yeah.
Are any of them on Google Maps?
Gosh, that's a good question. I don't know. They last about, depends on how many people drive over them. They'll last upwards to 2 months. But I don't know, because then I kind of do them and leave. But I have no idea. I should find out when they retake Google Maps and be sure and do one, right? Then I could stop hanging my head out an airplane, you know. Yeah.
I think I'm hearing some ideas, though, for...
Yeah, that's actually very interesting. Thank you.
Radio channel, and then as somebody hits a certain speed of the highway, get like local history to overplay on the radio.
I can tell you just about every place. There's only, actually, Robert, you'll know this one. Do you know between Lakeside and Burns, there's only that one station, and it's Rush Limbaugh. He knows what I'm talking about, yeah. It's by a shoe tree, by the way, yeah. Yeah, that was a good question, yeah. Thank you. Another, yeah, Michelle.
Do you make art because you learn from it?
Yeah, absolutely,
I was
yeah.
wondering what process, like, gives you the most lucid amount of learning?
Oh, that's a good question. I make art because it mitigates the craziness of the world. That's the first thing. The studio works are all about me going like, whoa, did I just hear that person say that? You know, like nationally, or it's in reaction to, it's sort of that category of commentary, okay? And so it's a way for me just to not go crazy, I think, you know, because I think, oh my gosh, they actually did that, and I have to go somewhere and put that in some form, all right? And so that's one form of learning. But the highway poems and the trailers, I think, you know, the highway poems are obviously one of my favorite things to do. And I think that one is very much about how I can take the me and make the we and be in the community, which is another reason why I want to be anonymous. Yeah. I kind of have certain places I hang out in the West. You know, I think by the way, when I say the West, I have this picture in my head, and it has nothing to do with political lines. It just has to do with mountain ranges and water. Like when I say the West, I think, oh, the Great Basin, and it starts here and it goes there, and yeah, it has a little bit of Utah and Idaho and the Snake River, and you know, like I think in those terms in my head, like I can see it and I can feel it, and I don't think like I'm now in the state of blank. You know, ironically, I really haven't done anything much in Montana. I've been here for a long time, but I'm always going to the Great Basin. Yeah, it's kind of my place. Yeah. Other questions? Yeah.
Kind of bringing us back to art and science and the relationship between the two. You mentioned during your introduction that potentially on the verge of this pluralistic era where the two can kind of coexist. What would that look like to you? Because you mentioned that, you know, maybe, hopefully we'll see that in our lifetime.
Yeah.
But how will we know? You know, what does that look like? And where, if anywhere, do you see that anywhere, or do you use that?
Okay, I'll try to take it systematically. I'm hoping for a pluralistic era, because pluralistic era is like the Renaissance, the 60s, you know, like there's these different eras in history where a lot of things just kind of surfaced, modernism, you know. A lot of things will surface in a bunch of areas of research at once, okay? And so I'm kind of hoping for it because I just sort of feel like we're a little bit played out right now, you know, and I don't know what it's going to be. I have no fix on that. I'll just witness it and jump in the water, you know. So, and then, so that's the first thing. And then what was, ask me again. Yeah.
I guess where do you see pieces of that or hints toward that in your own art?
Okay, so where do I see the hints of the science and the art coming together? You know what? I don't really. I mean, I am aware of this stuff. If I do, it's in the vernacular of range, right? And in the vernacular of what I make. So it's in that context, yeah. So it might be a vernacular question more than anything. All right. Now, where do I see it in the broader spectrum of art? Oh my gosh, there's a lot of artists doing it a lot better than I am. I'm a little bit provincial, and I know it. Okay, I want to be there, and so. But in the art world context, there's a lot of artists doing wonderful things, wonderful things, and it usually has a socio-political element to it as well. Agnes Dene did a piece a long time ago. Do you remember Bobby Wheatfield? Okay, I'm going to tell you this piece. You guys have to use your imagination. An artist named Agnes Dene went into South Manhattan, and a real estate developer had purchased some low-income housing, tore it down, and displaced all the people. And Agnes Dene came in and asked if she could have it between the demolition and when they were scheduled to start construction on high-rise for higher income individuals. And it was about a 2 to 3 year period. She went in and she amended the soil and she planted wheat in the middle of Manhattan. She harvested the wheat, she made bread, she tracked down the families and brought them the bread. Now what am I doing? You know what I mean? So there's some really incredible artworks out there that are about place and environment and socio-political and economic situations that I think are absolutely stunning. Does that kind of answer it? Okay, yeah. And now where does that cross with science? There are other artists who are utilizing collaborations, and I am interested in collaborating with scientists. Like E.O. Wilson, one of my heroes, says we need artists to interpret the science and get it into the public realm versus a research paper that gets read or into a journal. Let's get it into art and get it out there. And I vote yes on that. Yeah.
When you're describing rain dryer and witnessing stream flows over time, I think of that role as that you're a sensing organ in the environment. And it's really incredible to watch all the sensing networks that are being built, sensing arrays of hardware. So you're a flesh and blood sensing object in the landscape. And so I wonder the reports that you submit, if they're mostly narrative reports, and to what degree they're quantitative data streams that can be consumed into these other networks that are being built up.
Okay.
So I was wondering, but it seems like it's important that there's a willingness for the range to embrace this reason, communicating with technology and integrating it into the vernacular of these new That would be just a really straightforward way for you to leave your story and trail of data.
Right. So more you're saying more of an observation, like keep up those reports.
And then also embrace the vernacular of science. So you might say, the stream is flowing heavy this year. And the scientists are saying, they're saying it's at XYZ volume. So if you're, it's amazing the mobile devices, you can take a mobile sample as a citizen scientist or a rain writer, then you're becoming the mesh in the patchwork.
Right. No, and that I'm very interested, and I do. So the question was, could a person as a range writer possibly gather data and use the reports as maybe a place of dissemination for information? Is that instead of art per se? Yeah.
Now you're embracing the vernacular of science. And, maybe you think of the old salts telling their story. Now, and if people
Right.
embrace both sides of it,
Right.
a connection.
Well, here's what I'm hoping to do. I'm hoping, okay, it kind of goes like this. The Forest Service wants me to do it this way, and I don't. Don't tell anybody, okay? I do it this other way, and they come along and say, we've never seen it look so good. Why? And I went, well, let's have a beer. I'll tell you all about it. But, I got to be a little careful there, all right, because it's a grazing plan. And I cannot take that into my own hands completely. But if I see something that should be adjusted, by gosh, I'm going to do it if I think it's going to benefit the range. All right. I'll tell you. Maybe these stories need to go in. I don't know. I love making these reports, by the way, because they're quantifiable. I love quantifiable stuff. Hey, we know where we're going. And art, I walk in the studio and go, wow, what am I going to do today? I got some, wooden shoes and some, other stuff. I don't know what. I think I'll just stick it on like that, And where quantifiable, you go I want to make a report, and I'm going to take pictures of all the troughs, and I'm going to show all the repairs, and I'm, all the materials, and they're kind of fun, I'm nerdy that way. I think what I would like to do is I would like to have the green light to say, gee, what are you really doing? And you got to be a little careful. There's a lot of egos in those agencies, and there's ownership, and there's stuff going on, and you just have to be a little careful about where you tread and how you do it. And I had a rancher one time. Now you guys have to imagine. Now we're in Missoula, and we're all kindred souls, okay? So it goes like this. A woman from Missoula is going to ride our range. I'll be goddamn, I'm not, can you hear it? Okay, so I arrive. And yeah, I'm your range rider. And 3 years later, sitting and having a beer, and he says, our cattle weights have never been so great. What are you doing? Okay, now it just took 3 years. It took 3 years. I had to have that lifted eyebrow for a long time. Connie, this goes back to what you're talking about, perseverance and enjoying it no matter what it is, and you're not popular, and I've been so unpopular, and you say, I can shoulder this. I'm a big girl, I can do this, and I know how to do it. You just wait. That's what I'm thinking. I don't say that, and then pretty soon, how come your weights are better than our own on our range? Okay, well, it's because I get out and ride. Yeah, and that's part of the problem. You have to remember, in the Forest Service and range, if you go back to it, it used to be the local people who rode horseback all the time, right? And they were handy, and they knew cattle. And then and I don't know who does or doesn't, or who is or isn't in this room, but I found that, well, let's see, 100% of the people overseeing the range know nothing about being on a horse. Other than we do the preliminary ride in the spring, we plop them on a horse, they hang on, and we go up the trail, right? And they don't know where they are. I'm there all the time. I know every rock, right, on that damn place, right? And they really don't know, and it's not their fault. Part of expanding this would be to teach people how to do this, and how to do it. In this case, if you want to walk it, that's great. It's 33,000 acres, but it's hard to move cows, when you're walking, and it's easier to do it on a horse with a bunch of dogs. So I think that there's this opportunity to bring it together. I'm not. You know what I've learned? I'm old. I'm 60. I don't force it. I just do it. And if you just do these things, the path will emerge. The path will emerge if you just do it. But you have to put yourself in the situation, okay? Once again, we've heard it in this room throughout this series. It's another thing about when I started writing range, I did it by myself. It wasn't through friends. It wasn't through anybody I know. I bought a truck. I bought a trailer. I bought a horse, and I bought a saddle, in that order. First I bought the truck, then I bought the trailer, then I bought the horse, then I bought the saddle. Okay? And then I said, I'm ready to go to work. and you look around, and in fact, I wrote, this is what I want to, it's 8:30 now, ready? This is what I want, tragedy and nostalgia humor is throughout the work. My work is funny. It's also really sad, and I get it. I want it to be that way. In order to be, I think, here's what being in the studio and being on Range Share. You have to be comfortable with risk. There are people who want to know where they're going to land. You are not an artist if you want to know where you're going to land. You have to be comfortable with risk. Okay? You just intrinsically has to be in your character. Like, I don't know. I'm going. Okay? You have to appreciate not knowing. All right? This is where range, I have to appreciate not knowing. Not knowing what I'm going to find around the next corner. Not knowing what the stream did over the winter or whatever's going on. Okay? Seek out good information. Don't go to a dumbass to get information. Go to someone that knows what they're doing. Read what they have written. Listen to what they've said, and you determine whether you want in on that information or not. Okay? And I don't care if it has to do with horses, art, anything. You need to seek out the good information. So your filter needs to be on. All right? View yourself in context. I had to view myself as a female, the only female art professor in the state of Nevada, a female range rider, middle age, mind you. You know, I started young, but going and still doing it. You have to see yourself in context and what other people see, all right, when you're there. And you may have to just kind of play it out, you know, use some navigational skills, all right. By the way, when it comes to ranches and ranchers, always bring food, all right. And here's the other thing, the most important one, make mistakes. Don't be afraid to make a mistake. And then say, I made a mistake. Let's figure out how to make this right. Okay? If those are the things I've learned the most. All right, so we'll stop there.
Thank you.
Yeah.